Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside Paper Wars issue number 102. This is the official magazine of Compass Games. Inside the magazine we have the game Santiago Campaign 1898, War between Spain and the United States in 1898. This is a game designed by Javier Romero. So we'll be taking a look at both the game and the magazine itself. But first let's take a look at all the components you get with Paper Wars issue number 102. We start off with the magazine. Our sheet of counters, which are shrink wrapped, and as you can see, there's a good reason for that. They just start falling out. These counters are very easy to punch. Then we have our map. So let's set up the map and take a closer look at the game and then the magazine. And here's a look at the map that comes with the game. It's a very straightforward, very attractive map. It's going to get you right into the action. We have the Caribbean Sea here, which feeds into Santiago Harbor here. Santiago de Cuba is right here. And you've got all these redoubts up around Santiago de Cuba. You've got another one down here with the two batteries on the point leading into Santiago Harbor. You've also got another redoubt there up by El Caney. And what the U.S. wants to do in this game is you see all these Spanish flags. You want to take those objectives. If you get 4 objectives at the beginning of any phase, you will then roll a d6 and consult the Spanish surrender table, see if they surrender. If you get the Spanish to surrender prior to turn 14, the U.S. will win. Pretty straightforward, only 5 pages of rules. It's going to be one of those games you can get on a table and get to playing quick. We have a terrain effects chart up at the top right. Below that, we have the defensive fire table, the shock combat table, and the turn track along the bottom. The turn sequence is listed on the left-hand side as well as also in the rules, as you'll see. But overall, really dig the map, and I love the fact that you can tell right away it's going to be a brawl. You're going to get right into it, and you're going to get it right after it. That's the type of magazine game we all dig. And here's a look at the counter sheet that comes with the game, and as you can see, they're all back in place. When we looked at them when they were in the wrapper, they were all falling out, so I had to take them out and then put them all back into the counter tree because they all just fell right out. So when you're taking them out of the wrapper, be very careful not to lose them, especially if they hit the ground. If you got any pets or small kids, they could go off into the great beyond. We start off with the Spanish forces on the top left, Cuban forces below that, and the U.S. forces here along the right-hand side, along with some administrative counters. These counters along the bottom are going to be something a little different. This is for contact now. There are a couple of expansion scenarios that come with the magazine. And it sounds a little funny getting some expansion counters and expansion scenarios for a game that's not out yet, but that game should be getting into production here pretty soon, the next couple months. So we'll have these counters and the extra scenarios ahead of time. But as always, counters look fantastic and they fall right out of the tray. So be careful with them, like I said. Next, we'll take a look at the rules. As you can see, only 5 pages of rules when we look at the table of contents. Start off with the introduction of components, giving you a breakdown of the map, the counters, how to read them. Then we have abbreviations for the Spanish, the Cubans, as well as the U.S. Army. Then we get into the sequence of play, all broken down for you, setup, and then how to win, which we already talked about. Take the Spanish flags, which are the objectives, that marks the objectives on the map. Take 4 of those, and then you roll on the Spanish surrender table and see if you win. And that Spanish surrender table is right here on the top right. We have our results, and I'll explain to you the U.S. withdrawal table, stacking, leaders, historic events, movement, combat, logistics, and yellow fever. Then we have the defensive fire table, the shock combat table, and then historical setups for both the Spanish and the U.S. deployments, the turn sequence breakdown, the terrain effects chart, and then we have the counter manifest on the last page, and that's it for the rules. Very short, very straightforward. Get it on the table and get to playing. And lastly, we'll take a look at the magazine itself. This is a 55-page full-color magazine. Inside of the front cover, we have the table of contents listing out all the articles and the goodies inside this issue. Start off with the editorial by Ty Bomba. Then we have Behind the Lines report from Adam Starkweather. Scenario openings for The First Migrations in Barbarians at the Gates by Chris Van Beurden. America Bomber, Evil Queen of the Skies expansion player aid sheets from Greg Smith. Schnellboats, Scourge of the English Channel, or as Bill always says, Chanel Boats. That's from designer Joe Carter. Then we have Bismarck, The Last Battle, Deep Dive from Petros Cyrillos. Mistakes, Heroism and Bluffs, Santiago 1898 by Javier Romero Munoz. Then we have the rules of play for Santiago 1898, which we already looked at. Contact Now game preview, additional scenarios from Steve Overton. Roma Victrix deep dive from Paul Callio. Granada 1482 to 1492 deep dive by Jose Rivero. Imperial Tide deep dive by Gregory Smith. Dogboats Battle of the Narrow Seas deep dive by Joe Carter. Projects update from Billy Thomas Jr. And then the erratum for Paper Wars 100, and then a progress report from John Kranz. And then the editorial here, we're going to see that we've got a whole bunch of games lined up for the future issues of Paper Wars. Issue 109 is Baltic Frycorps. 110 is Red Partisans. 111 is With Fire and Sword. 112 is Drury's Bluff and Cedar Creek. And 113 is Autumn Mists. Then we have the Behind the Lines report from Adam Starkweather. And we get into the scenario openings for the First Migrations and Barbarians at the Gates by designer Chris Van Beerden. So it's always great to get the designers to give their opening moves, their suggested strategies, things like that for their games, because no one's played these games as many times as the designers have. So it's always great to get their take on some of these things that will help you play your game better. Napoleon's Eagles 2, Tests of Faith. Then we have the expansion for America Bomber. Seen these before. Then we get to Schnellboats. This is by designer Joe Carter. Bismarck, The Last Battle. Petros Cirillos is going to give us a deep dive into this game. Then we have the Santiago campaign, Mistakes, Heroism, and Bluffs by Javier Romero Munoz. It's going to give us the history behind the game that we're going to be playing from this magazine. And there's the rules, which we've already looked at. Just going to kind of jump past those. Then we get to the game preview, additional scenarios for Contact Now, which is a game that's not even out yet, but as you saw on the counter sheet, we have the counters for these scenarios. So we get two different scenarios, Checkpoint and Tanks, and both of these are set in Ukraine in 2014. Then Paul Callio gives us Roma Victrix. Deep dive into that. We have variant rules and scenarios and a scenario variant. It's great to have this stuff ahead of time before the games come out. Then we have Granada, Last Stand of the Moors, 1482 to 1492. It's going to be a deep dive by the designer, Jose Rivero. Then we have Imperial Tide, The Great War, 1914 to 1918. Another deep dive by the designer Greg Smith. And he's going to go into good detail on the cards so you can understand, because card play is the key to that game. And we have Dogboats, which is the next in the boat trilogy that is coming out from Joe Carter. Chanel Boats, as Bill always says, is out now, and Dogboats will be up next. Then we have Projects Update, Bismarck, The Last Battle, and Sniper Kill confirmed. And then we have some errata here for Paper Wars 100. Just a couple things for the Inkerman errata. Then we have the progress report by John Kranz. Then we have a listing of what we've got coming for us in Paper Wars 103 to 106. Fallujah Fury, The Second Battle for the City. Wolftone's Rebellion. Ebb and Flow, The 1951 Communist Offensive. And Power and Resolution by Stephen Newberg. And that is a look at everything you get inside of Paper Wars, issue 102, the official magazine of Compass Games. Inside, we get the game Santiago Campaign, 1898, the war between Spain and the United States in 1898, designed by Javier Romero. You can see we've got a lot of great articles in here. We've got a really neat game that looks like it's going to be very straightforward. Only 5 pages of rules, low counter count, so it's going to be one of those games you can throw on your table and get to playing real fast. Looks like it's going to be a good brawl type of game. 15 turns, the U.S. wants to try to win before turn 14 by taking at least 4 objectives, and there's plenty of them out there for you to try to press against. So pressure will really be on the U.S. to try to rush in and get those objectives, but at the same time, these Spanish forces are going to try to play at delaying action as long as they can and block the U.S. from getting to those objectives. So good little back and forth, should be great for solitaire as well as 2-player. Looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Real neat little game to play. So Paper Wars issue number 102 is now available and shipping to all subscribers. And if you have not picked up your own copy, you can order it right on the Compass site. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you've been curious about this one. If you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.